All right, we're out here in the Oregon wilderness doing a little camping and some molding of some real rock. We've chosen a location right along the river so that we can, use some water to wash the rocks. One of the things we do is we clean the rocks prior to actually molding. I've assembled a few things here that we were going to need, and really it's just a matter of about 2 boxes worth of material. One of the first things that we're bringing is some brushes. You know, a good stiff brush, kind of a foxtail, and then a scrub brush, which is hard nylon bristles along with some little bristles on the top so that we can actually clean the rock good. In addition, because we have one of these little cups, we can actually, by choosing the rock that's near the river, we can wash the rock off and then we'll let it dry. But those are kind of a key things to have along, is just something to clean the rock with. The other thing I brought was a can of sealer, which I've diluted already. That acrylic sealer carried in the xylene-based solvent, I've diluted 2 to 1, and I put it in the can of xylene just for easy transport because the other can's a 5-gallon bucket. What I'm gonna do next, after I take this sealer, I'm gonna pour it into this squirt bottle, and then I'll just squirt the sealer on, and then afterwards, as soon as I get that on, I'm gonna paintbrush it in just to make sure I get a dispersal of that material, and I'll seal the rock 2 times. Now mind you, I've cleaned it, it's dry at that point. You gotta let it sit in the sun for a bit, and then we can seal it. This sealer on a hot day like today, 5, 10, 15 minutes, the first coat's done. Then I'm gonna spray it again. We're gonna have that dry in about 15 minutes at the most. And then I brought another squirt bottle with the 1 gallon of mold release. Again, I'll pour this mold release in here, squirt it on. Then I'll take my, my paintbrush just to disperse it around the rock real good. I'll put 2 good coats of this on. So now I've got my rock cleaned, sealed, and then mold release. And the mold release is going to take about 10 to 20 minutes to dry. It must be dry before we proceed. Some of the other items I brought was these $1 store paintbrushes. Now I've cut this one. I don't know if you can see the difference there. This is too long of a bristle. It's too soft. By cutting it, it becomes perfect for putting on the molding rubber. And when we first put it on, we really put it on thin and try and get it into the definition. Don't just glob it on, because you may have an air spot where you bridge over the actual rock piece and all you're getting is air as a mold as opposed to the rock texture. So again, we've cut these real short, and I brought about 20 of these with me, is about what I'll need. Now when we go to mix the mold rubber, I've brought along some of these mixing tubs that we'll actually put part A and part B into. And this is what a 1 quart measuring. This is perfect. I'm one individual going to be doing this, so I'm only going to be mixing up 8 ounces of part A and 8 ounces of part B, so I got 16 ounces. I'm going to have to move because that'll kick on me and I might not be able to use it all. So now, as far as the molding rubber, obviously a guy will bring as much rubber as needed to cover the specimen that he's after. In my particular case, I brought along 2 of the 5-gallon kits, or I'm sorry, 2 of the 1-gallon kits of the Brush On 40 from Smooth On, and that information's in your tech manual. But these are perfect for toting down to the river. They're not really heavy and big, and each one of these combined will make obviously 2 gallons of material. That's going to cover me on average from say 12 square feet to 18, 20, depending on the coarseness or the definition of the rock. If it's a real mountainous rock, then you're going to get less square footage. But I brought along 2, so we're going to make 2 bigger blankets, like about a 4x4 rock mold. What I'm after is some shear panel type of cliff rocks that we're going to take back and mold. So that's the molding rubber. We'll put that on after we've sealed it. Usually I'm going to do it in 3 coats. The first coat's real thin, capturing the definition. Then I'll right away back that with a good heavy coat, and then 1 more heavy coat, and we should have it ready for the hard mold. And in my case, if you've watched my DVDs, you've known that I prefer the cementatious hard mold, which is fiber and the that's how I make my hard molds back at the shop. Today what I did was I brought out this long strand fiberglass from the auto parts store, and it has the catalyst with it. And again, the reason I've chosen that here is to expedite the hard molding. If I use the cementatious way, I'd have to wait till tomorrow morning to demold. I need to leave it sit for 24 hours, where this fiberglass I'll be doing in about 15 minutes after I've actually placed it. You'll see me actually put the fiberglass on the rubber, which is dry, and then I'll go ahead and peel the hard mold off and the rubber mold within about 15 minutes applying this fiberglass. I spent quite a bit of time cleaning this rock before I ever put the seal coat on it, the sealer. And you got to seal the rock. It's real important. But anyway, cleaning it, I remember this taking me about 3 hours. I kid you not. Now I'm spraying on multiple coats of the sealer. And that's so, again, you fill porosity to where the rubber doesn't dow into it. And mold release, then again, the more mold release, you'll see me struggling with this later. I should have put more mold release on. Putting the first coat of rubber in, I'm brushing that in hard, trying to get it into the surface. You don't want to glob a lot on and try and smooth it over the rock. You'll catch air. You won't even get the rubber to touch the rock. So it's really imperative, work it in just to where you put a little on and smear it in good. So hard working, short bristle. We've cut the bristle, as I said earlier in the demonstration, to where you had a rigidity to be able to push that into the cracks and crevice. This crevice that's right to the right of my hand, that was a hard one to get out of. And again, probably because I didn't spray a bunch of release into it. In those areas there, you really have to release the crap out of it. And I pulled it off. You'll see me do it, but it was a struggle. And heck, I'm standing in the water up to my, almost my shins there. I could have fell over. It could have got wet. Who knows what had happened? But anyway, in this rubber, I knew how much area I could get out of the 2 1-gallon kits. So I had 4 gallons of rubber, and I knew what I could make. What I didn't do here was have enough of the fiberglass hard mold to be able to capture it all, but that was no big deal. I still faked it when I got back. But this rock, you can see in the middle of it, there's a peak. On the right side, it's in the shadow. On the left side, it's lit. And there's a V orientation to this thing. And I knew that when I got back to the shop and I didn't have the full rubber covered with, fiberglass as a hard mold, I faked it. But here I'm putting on the second coat, which now I can go ahead and get it on a little thicker and not worry about trapping air. I'm still trying to work it out, smooth it out to where it's a certain thickness. If you get it too thick, it runs. And that's not what you want either. So there's about a 1/4 inch thickness at the most on the vertical surface of this rubber that you can put on at one given time without it running. So again, here, the mixing the rubber with a paint stick in a quart little jar like that, oh my God, the time it took me. I didn't have anybody. My wife was filming this. We're on vacation and I've got to do this work here. So poor girl had to suffer through this, but nevertheless, not the ideal way of doing this. Now I've got the 3rd coat of rubber complete, and I'm going to go ahead now. It's dry from the day before, and it's got a little tackiness to it. The fiberglass is not going to stick to it though. It does for a little bit because fiberglass is an adhesive, as well as a composite, so it sticks, but not. It's impossible for it to bond to the rubber because the rubber is real tight. Celled, and it's not going to need a release agent or anything. And again, this way of doing this, usually I make my hard molds out of cement, and you got to kick a little bit on a piece of cardboard with a catalyst and stir it up and put it on. Took forever. And I think I only had 2 or 3 cans of the gallon cans of the fiberglass. But looking back, I think this was in 2009. It was the last mold I took off of this river, and I took off about 70 different molds, bigger than this one even, off this river. And this was the last one I did because environmentally, the park rangers were not real sympathetic to my desire to, cast. Here, I broke a little piece off. I put it back together in the shop, was no big deal, but I didn't get the whole thing covered. I chose to get that peak of the V to where I could lay the rocks, the mold into it and get that formation again back when I started. Again, pulling this rubber off, bottom, sides, everything came off fairly good, but it could have stood a little more release. And then I'm going to be forced. Now the only thing that's holding this thing is up on top, that crevice. And here I'm trying to, now I'm trying to pull it out. And as I said, I could have fell over. Old Jimmy could have got hurt. Who knows? But I finally got it out. And that's about the end of it.
All right, good afternoon here. We're 2 years about, because it's summertime, and it was summertime when I started this section of this video, and you saw me out there on the river casting this very skin, okay? Well, there was another component with this skin that you saw me making, and that was the fiberglass hard mold. This is just floppy and it just gives texture. Well, that green fiberglass that I made, which didn't cover this whole thing because I didn't bring enough with me, was, I don't know where it is now, but we did use it to create the mold that we now use. This is just an original skin that we'll go back to if we need it, but I've replicated the actual rock here, this is what we call an RP60, a rock panel 60, and it is exactly the same texture and form that you saw out there on the river. Again, what I said to you when I was there at the river, when I suggested that I didn't have the hard mold completed, I came back and I laid that green fiberglass, which was like a V. If you look at this, it has kind of a V, kind of a profile. I guess if you turn it sideways, you might could see it, but you know, this skin doesn't look anything like that. So when I came back to the shop, I actually put the skin or the fiberglass down, and I put what skin I had, or the skin into the fiberglass. And where the fiberglass wasn't supported by the skin, I think I just took some old rags or some wadded up cardboard or something to give me the profile that I wanted to get me back to where I was. Now, again, that was kind of like a paraphrase. It wasn't exact. If you're looking for an exact replication, you have to get the hard mold to cover that entire rubber. Nobody that's ever seen this says to me, "Hey Jim, that doesn't look anything, or it doesn't look like the rock that you made out, you took a copy of in the river." Nobody knows. In fact, I have several times taken these molds and I'll put you a piece of plywood right here, I'll tack this to it, and I'll make this just like this, or maybe I can pooch this up like this. Any way that I want to, I can configure this rubber, and by supporting it by several different means of trash, wood, whatever, and get it to the profile that I'm after. When I cast into it, it comes out and it'll be a different look than this. So right now, we've taken this skin and we made the original copy, which you're looking at right here, and then I came by and I cleaned up the edges and just made it more rectangular. In fact, I cut some of the loose ends off. Even though it's kind of erratic, it's still a nice finished edge. And then we created this, which is a copy of a copy, second generation, but it's got the hard mold complete underneath it, which gives this form. Again, this particular piece of rubber, if I put it on the table, it'll react much like that one. It'll want to lay flat. Well, if you look at the hard mold here, you'll see this area here I really captured because it had the most life in it. I captured that with the green fiberglass. The only thing I really had to fake was this end here. But you can see the elevation change in that hard mold. So this gives me the form. And when this gets put into it, it gives me the texture. Oop, I got it upside down. It gives me the texture, and the two together make ultimately the mold. So now I want to take the opportunity. The guys have cleaned this. They've sprayed it with a mold release twice, paintbrushed it in. We're now about to put some cream coat into it, and then we'll back that with the fiber mud. We'll just go ahead and cast this, and then out of that casting will come an image just like this. So basically now what I want to show you is us casting by hand, because I realize a lot of you do not have a concrete pump, and I'm not really willing to show you my concrete pump because it's a modified pump and it's kind of proprietary to what I do. But we're just going to hand pack this as though probably most of you would. So it's totally possible. Anyway, stick with it. Okay, we've mixed up the cream now, and the viscosity of the cream is something like a kind of a milkshake, maybe a little thinner. And Shaq, you want to throw me a brush? This one's kind of crappy. I like new brushes. At any rate, get a brush. And we're going to paintbrush. Really want to work this into the surface. Really, don't try and apply too much all at once. Get the surface coated, and then you can back it. You want to paintbrush some? Get up here on the table. Get up. You got to get up to paint. You can climb up. So anyway, we're going to coat it with basically two coats. One, the real pushed in one, and then the second one, which is done right on top of the other one. Paintbrush it in. Anyway, covering all this with the cream, that's going to be the first thing that comes out of the mold. Checker, you can go ahead and cover that. When you look at the rock, that's what you're seeing is this cream. It is fiberless, aggregateless. It is going to have the best ability to get into that definition and pull it out and recapture it. So kind of that's what they're doing now. And Scar, why don't you give him a hand there? We'll just go ahead and paintbrush this all in, and you guys can watch. Let me see if we can't locate that a little closer to get a good shot of it. Okay, D and Shek. D's my grandson from Skylar, and then Shek's right there. He's working hard. But D's a third-generation rock maker here on one of his first projects. No, he's been in the shop quite a bit. You know how to paint rocks, right, D?
Oh, more.
Yeah?
Oh, step over more.
There you go, like that.
Oh, wait. More. Oh, more.
So they're really working that into the surface just to try and capture. He's got more for you, D. Right there, puppy. Paintbrush this, and D just put a bunch. Shek put a bunch there for you. Working in. Push it in hard. Again, if you can hear that on the tape here, how they're really pushing that in. They're trying to capture that cream into that definition. Shaq, go ahead and show, kind of just play with that mud a little bit in your hands, squish a little bit of it there. It's like an oatmeal kind of a deal, but you can see, let me pan in on that and get our particular fiber mud is extremely inundated with fiber, unlike any in the industry. So Shaq's going to go ahead and start packing.
One or two.
One. Again, in our particular panels being about a ½ inch thick, you know, we're able to achieve a 12,000 psi strength in that rating. Well, again, that's going to conclude this section here. I mean, all they're going to do now is just paintbrush it in, kind of smooth it out on the back just for aesthetics. And, you know, if you have your other DVDs here with the other casting that we've done, if you have any questions, give us a call. You going to check these area?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's good. Good right there.
That's good, puppy. I'm going to take off your glove. Oh no, that's all we're doing right there.
Yep, we're all done.
So that's good. I just got to put that in place and do a little narration. Good to go.
We are doing.
Come look at my fan.
That was your dad.
Right there? Daddy, I don't want my pen.
Yeah.
Get off.
Yeah.
Get off.
Now in the daub, I just went 2 colors of speckle, right? Now I'm daubing. In the daub, you're hitting highs and lows. It's this brush isn't discriminating between the two. But it is going to make texture. Doesn't this, I mean, this is a flat piece of cardboard. Can you not see some activity there that kind of is an illusion of what? Life. It's not just a color. When you first go on, when you just load your brush, you don't know how much, so you barely touch it. See? I can see an effect here, and now I'm putting a little more pressure. As you have a fully loaded brush, you don't want to go in there and push hard. As I go now, I'm going to be emptying more and more of this off, so I'll push a little harder as I go on. So the old brush is really good for daub. Now I could do the speckle just that way with the guns. On a little piece like this, I'm not going to break that out. But if you were doing, you know, this project, this gun, and I'll show it to you because we're going to do some speckles, will be the tool of choice, and I can get big old fat spots down to real fine spots, and I can move like the wind. I mean, it's very fast. New brush now for the skim. If you take an old brush, it just seems like it's like a rake, almost like what this is doing now, only more. It's a bunch of streaks. A new brush doesn't do that as much.
All right. Now I'm just going to come by and skim on some color. And what do you see now happening? It's picking up the highs, and it's really, you know, illuminating them, so to speak. And I'm choosing a light color. I can choose any color. In fact, as soon as I'm done with this, I'll go over with a dark color. I could care less. And always put the light on before the dark. No, there's no, I've heard this by some, should you put the light colors on first? And you know what? You're overthinking it. Just get it done. Just throw it on there. But mind you, you're doing this on a panel here first, and then you'll do the job. Well, you figure yourself out, but really, that old boy just got after it, man. Look at that. You can see that picking up those highs, isn't it? I know it's streaking in the valleys a little bit here and there, but mainly it's picking up the highs. And again, light when you first start out, because now this I don't like. Do you see what I just did there? I kind of got a streak of the color. Now I'll probably go over it, but I saw it like a paintbrush, and now it's gone. So when you get that, flatten it out like I just did, and it won't do that. See that? It's just going to take that rake aspect out of it, even though I just got it again. I'm going to get this thing wet real fast. Maybe too much air. You see all my color washing off? It don't move. It's dried. It's locked in. Now you can paint this on, you can spray it on, you can throw it on. I mean, there's a lot of ways of getting color on. And then how much you put on has a lot to do with what actually happens. Now you've got a lot of water on that surface, and this is going to do its own thing right now, and I could just leave it, and I'm doing this all the way down. Don't mind those. I'm doing this all the way down like that, and I'm letting it be. You know what? You're not going to see any of that, what I just did, at all. There's so much water on that surface, it's all going down. What you might see is one of these little ledges or cups, it might pool in there, but that much water, I keep talking, and I don't lock that in right now, it's going to be nothing. So if you want an effect, maybe you don't put so much water on, and you put the stain on, you know, just putting a toner on, you put it on, it runs because it's mostly water. Well, I'm doing strong colors with some water added to it, and now this is going to be a drier surface now because I've been talking, so it's more likely going to stay. You saw it run right away, right? I just want a little more richness and color. Just a little bit here and there. I got a jet, need more of a fan. Probably don't need as much air. Now, when you're doing speckles, you hear that? You hear how it's on? I've got my hand pulled back so as to keep a mean average here with the air, to keep it consistent, because if you let off and you pull all the way back, you've got to, initially you got a little more pressure than you will after you've done that, so you get an indifference to the actual outcome. This is big speckles, can you see it? It's going to run on this, so just for a little, I guess it's, see, it's melting right in. Don't even have to water it, a little more air. Go up and look at the diversity in that. You know, you're in the 20-foot area right now. There's a lot of stuff, and you ain't picking out one thing that I've done, and if you looked at this, you'd go, how did he do that? You wouldn't know. It looks very realistic, it looks complicated, it looks artistic. If we discern that this is fake, this guy's an artist. And I'm not tooting my own horn, I'm just telling you, this is very high definition in the paint job, but it just took a few little process steps there and it's done. I don't get enough feedback. Give me feedback. Am I blowing my own horn or am I right?
That's good. That's good. I have a question. Is there some kind of element, I saw somebody who could actually add to this that would make the moss and stuff?
Yeah, we'll go over that. That's the overlay. That was the technique that I was forgetting today. The overlay technique. Thank you. That reminds me.
But the moss is the overlay?
Moss, sedimentary, mineral deposits. There's a lot of.
Oh, you can get that to happen.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay. May not be your color, but do you appreciate the effect?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Now, what color is that?